The road to the EGT3 Challenge Pro title has been won with many ups and downs. All throughout the past few months, its top competitors have had to showcase precision, speed, as well as the ability to plan things just right and limit mistakes. And now, with the season coming to its conclusion tonight, the pressure is on for some to secure their positions in the standings, and for others, a chance to come away with some hardware and a title. Tonight, we head to the virtual circuit Zandvoort for tonight's coverage of the final round of the EGT3 Challenge Pro season here on EGT Canada. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Glenn Butt with our producer and Steve Proudly as we get ready to go racing in the Netherlands for what's expected to be an intense night of action. Before we get to the discussion in regards to today's action and what to expect for the next few hours or so, we'd like to take the time to shout out Center Porsche Quebec, along with Club Autosport Delta Quebec and Distillery de Croix for their support of EGT Canada and the EGT3 Challenge Pro season. The drivers are getting ready for an intriguing one tonight. A very difficult track, to say the least, to close out the campaign, Glenn. They're coming out Barcelona, which had its fair share of calamity, including a 4-5 car blanket for the race lead that's seen a lot of the drivers try to push and shove for said lead.
A bittersweet time of the season it is, Justin. We've had such a phenomenal race at the end, as you mentioned, with the 4 under the blanket and a topsy-turvy round for everybody, and it really has played out into this final round, and it's bittersweet, as I mentioned, because it's the last race of the year, but it's been an exciting season.
Remember, that was the race where you had Jonathan Vivan along with Dubé, Racine, Shentag, Belanger amongst those who are in the conversation that were fighting hard and battling to the point of significant contact, which helped get Dubé that race lead in what was a very wild sequence in the middle sector over at Circuit of Barcelona, Catalonia.
Yeah, and it fortunately for Bovan, he maintains the top of the standings, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but in the Pro-Am, it really mixed things up as well, and it's wide open for the top 3.
A lot to discuss when it comes to that, Mark. Let's take a look at the Pro standings, because despite all the contact and despite all the shuffling, the Pro standings have seen things play out where Jonathan Bavin, despite a 15-second time penalty last time out, does have the championship clinch tonight, Glenn. 35 points the advantage, 25 points the max you can score in a round.
Yeah, so second and third are still wide open, but Bavin, a little bit of that buffer, he needed it, and he sits there as a champion.
Bordeaux, though, had some ups and downs himself. He was in the conversation for the top 5 at one point. He finished 10th last time. That put him just 2 points ahead of Shentag, who was in that conversation to the very end for that race win last time out. Now it's going to get intriguing how things fare out. We're seeing also within range to potentially battle for top 3 in the standings pro side.
Yeah, exactly. And just looking down through the order, I mean, when you factor the points available for each of these positions, there's points to be gained in all 10 top 10 positions, except for obviously Bovan. But behind him, it's wide open for a lot of positions.
Moisan and Marc-Andre Landry amongst those positions that will potentially swap about. You have Mayer also in the conversation, the 9-1 from 5th to 7th. You also have Dubé as a result of his first victory of the campaign, overall-wise, to be in that conversation too. Bordeaux really slipped back after his strong start. Belanger rounding out the top 10 with 40 points scored, one of just 2 drivers in the top 10 overall who haven't picked up penalties throughout the races this season, should say. Let's take a look at the Pro-Am standings, because this is a different conversation. Melanson, Levaque, and Tommy Landry are the 3 drivers who have a chance to come away with the title at the end of the night.
That's right. They've been in the top 3 the last couple of weeks, but Melanson taking over first place. Mathematically, the top 3 are still there.
And the intriguing thing is, with each of them, they've had their own ups and downs, obviously. But they've also showcased speed at a variety of racetracks. Melanson, in particular, has really picked up the pace. Qualifying was strong at Barcelona, helped him get about a 2.5-second advantage over Tommy Landry last time out. But don't forget, Levaque also has showcased that same speed when he hasn't been marred in 25th like he was last time out. That's seen him really fall behind here.
Yeah, he's had some good finishes. Obviously, that last round really did hurt what might have been a different point scenario for him coming into this final round.
Keep in mind, there is some potential shuffling inside the top 5, too. Marchand, along with DeWart, Peze, and Lafrene in the conversation for that 5th position, separated by about 7 points, respectively. You also have Thibodeau, who started off strong, looking to battle to as high as 9th, maybe up to 8th spot at the end of the night. There's a lot to consider.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
With that, the drivers are getting ready for what's expected to be an intriguing next season too here, Glenn, and there's a lot to talk about when it comes to that next campaign. Let's take a quick glance at what's upcoming. A lot of excitement, to say the very least, with that upcoming news. Bit of a shorter season campaign. Lots to talk about over the next moments or so. But let's take a look at a lap around Zandvoort, shall we? Because this is pre-reconfiguration where they added a lot of the banking here at this racetrack with a return to Formula 1 Grand Prix racing to the Netherlands. You see with the flow of this racetrack, Glenn, not an easy circuit here.
Not an easy circuit indeed, a narrow circuit, a lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of undulations, and a couple of first, secondary corners as we see. We go through turn 4 there and climb up through the gears and then drop back downhill again.
One of the danger spots here is where we approach now. This is turn 7 all the way up to Bach 10, where it's expected to be one of the more intriguing sections because you have the runoff space to the left along the edge of the rumble strips, then that rhythm spot to Marble Bach, as it will be called throughout tonight. That will be very much so a rhythm portion up to Renault Bach to be able to try and make some lunges possibly, but more so, you perform well in this section of the racetrack, Glenn. It sets you up really well for the final sector up to Hanshurst.
It does, and then you get into some of these parts of the racetrack, for instance, coming up, corner 10 here is one of the action-packed parts of the racetrack. Keep an eye through here as well. Real interesting, quick right, left, and you got to be on the ball there through all that part of the racetrack, through 12 and 13, etc.
See that run right now through Kumo Bach, and in real life now the banking constructed here through Ari Lyondike Bach. But it's still a pretty solid chance for drivers to be able to get runs to the hard braking zone for Tarzan to try and swing their way up to the very front. There's a lot to consider when it comes to tonight's action. In turn, it could be an intriguingly wild one as a result here, Glenn.
Could be very wild, and you've got to be very careful even down through the last couple of corners or Ari Lyondike. You've got to really throttle the pedal just ever so slightly and get onto that front straight and that hard run, as you mentioned, down to Tarzan. A critical late racetrack, a lot of action, and about 4 or 5 really cool opportunities to pass.
Drivers meeting currently underway for drivers here at Zandvoort for tonight's action. And it's worth noting for the competitors, they've been practicing in what is described as fast conditions. First time I've seen the term fast, that really means very quick times expected at 14 degrees centigrade, the track and air temp tonight. And that's going to be an intriguing layer to think about, Glenn, where it's expected to be fast for qualifying. The times expect to be fast in turn. Yeah,
you know what? And then again, when you talk about this kind of racetrack, fast pace and narrow racetrack, lots of twists, lots of turns, qualifying is again one of those critical moments where you want to do as best you can, as quick as you can, establish those laps and get at the front of the starting order.
Now, for those tuning in for the first time amongst this finale, keep in mind the drivers who finished top 3 in their respective classes do have weight penalties to have considered: 30 kilograms for the winner, 20 kilograms for second, 10 for third place. There is also required pit stop where you must take 1 liter of gasoline. This racetrack in particular might be one where some of the strategy gears may be turning a bit, because with some of these session times, the lap times can be very fast here, to say the very least, which may open up a bit more range in that regard.
And what have we watched most of this season? We've watched very, very late pit stops, almost even right down to the last lap, in fact. So that is a great point, Justin, that we may see some earlier stops in this race because of the fuel consumption.
Now, the question's going to be, when it comes to Zandvoort, though, do you think it would be better for some, if they get into the heavy battles, to go for the undercut or try and toughen it out? Because we've seen at Barcelona in particular, the undercut had some major struggles for some where they were able to jump ahead of their battlers, but not necessarily too far up the road, so to speak, at the end of the race.
That's right. When it all balanced out, it wasn't. I mean, look at how we saw Boivin come right out onto the racetrack, right into that mix with the 4 of them. It's a gamble. I guess you've really got to feel how far ahead of the road am I if I come in now versus I stay in this gaggle of cars.
A lot to think about and consider, especially when it comes to a racetrack such as this tonight. Especially with all the drivers really hungry to finish things out cleanly and strongly. When it comes to tonight's action, final few moments of the drivers' meeting currently underway before we start off. 30 minutes total of qualifying up on the board. That'll be 15 minutes for the Pro-Am drivers, 15 for the Pro Class drivers to be able to set their fastest times. And it's worth noting amongst those storylines, Malonson has been one of the best performers qualifying-wise in Pro-Am all season, which has really helped him as of late in the point standings to help him power ahead of Lebike, as much as 5 to 7 spots ahead in some cases to his next closest competitor in class.
Absolutely, you're right about that. I mean, just taking into account the last 3 races, he's had a second, and a first, and you look back to Levesque and a 6th. I think he had a first, and then the last race, of course, when he had that 12th place finish, which changed his point. So you're right, he's been consistent, especially of late.
You see the conditions the drivers will be dealing with as they come out of this drivers meeting. Nighttime conditions. We mentioned how cool it is. Partly cloudy skies above the circuit in sim time. Continues to progress at about nearly 10 p.m. currently. So expect the lights to be on, and not just blinking, such as one who continues to do so in the pit lane. That would be, in general, the geese believe, who is trying to say hi to us. But in regards to tonight, depending on how things go for the race in of itself, that's something you have to consider, the possibility of those conditions, especially with the darkness for qualifying, a very dark racetrack here.
Yeah, you've really got to keep your focus, don't you? Because it's dark, and like you said, the nice cool conditions going to produce the horsepower, but you got to have your wits about you in that dark conditions, and some of that undulation. You really got to come up over the crest of a hill and know where you are.
It's going to be a massive thought process for the 60 laps up on the board as drivers finish up the drivers' meeting. They'll make their way now to the qualifying portion of the session. It will now be time to see who can put up the best times in the session, with their opportunities now up for grabs to do so.
So what do you think Boivin does in this case? Does he go for the perfect record, or as a true racer, or do you think he lets the battles happen around him?
That's a good question. It depends on driver to driver, Glenn. Curious on your thoughts, because we know Boivin will likely want to finish off strong, knowing there's not as much pressure right now, yes. He also won't be having the weight penalty here today because of, well, the 15-second time penalty picked up from the bumping and banging last time, as we're underway for Pro-Am qualifying.
Right, just to quickly make a note on that, there's also the team factor to consider for that championship as well, which they run second in right now.
That's a good point, because Test Racing 165 points as a unit this season. Malonson 115, Dubé 50 for reference for the team point standings. Advanced Sim Racing, they've slipped back to second because Boyer has only had 12 points scored. Ben has had 135 of them for his respective unit here entering tonight. Here's Jonathan Beaudry as we look to see if he starts off qualifying on the right foot. He's amongst the Bentleys in the field today. Next 30 laps, 30 minutes should say, up for grabs for drivers in sim time now 4 a.m.
And you mentioned, well, the first car we saw was that Jean-Luc Marchand car, and I've always just liked the look of that car with those that Castro livery. It was the first car we saw out on the racetrack to start this qualifying session.
Yeah, especially with the slickness of the bodywork, have to say, it just really fits. Here's a look at Jeff Collins, meanwhile. He's amongst the Ferraris, as Marchand and now that Lexus will be amongst the first to get up to speed to start their first flying lap of the session. Already trying to go as fast as 190 kilometers per hour, entering the middle sectors of the racetrack through turns 2 and 3.
Not wasting any time, are they? And then there's a great shot of just how dark it is, and how, and there's that point of coming up over that crest, and then where am I going? Where's the track going? Oh, there it is. It goes to the left on me. I got it.
Yeah, really have to have those markers really dialed in because compared to the new version, this track is excessively difficult, to say the very least. It's so easy to just send yourself off the edge of the racetrack in the middle sectors of the racetrack, especially with not as much banking compared to the changes made for Formula 1 for today's version.
That's right. At 15 turns, just a little over 4 kilometers. You've got a lot of way around to go, and a lot to remember. Never mind in the dark.
See where the first times end up falling for some of these drivers right now. The benchmark will be set by the number 14 car in Sim, this time heading towards Kumabakt up to Ari Leindijk. Sean has shown good qualifying pace. Panthers comes to mind to start off the season for being involved in some attrition there. First time up on the board for Pro-Am qualifying, this time for Marchand in the Lexus. What time will it be? A 1:37.295 is the opening benchmark. How does Tommy Landry respond? Well, he'll respond by just being in the ballpark by 3/10, but Lawson ends up jumping them by 3/10 as well.
And just as you mentioned, right, in qualifying, he's been sharp of late.
And Ferrari really has been dialed in for them. Beaudry, top 3 for now. Jeff Collins now making his way forward on the circuit. Collins has showed flashes of good speed at times this season. The past couple rounds have not gone necessarily the 241's way, however, strategy-wise, luck-wise, track position-wise. He'll start things off by jumping up to second.
And I would assume, guys, we talked about that cold temperature. I would assume they've got to be careful getting those tires up to temperature. It's going to take a little longer at 14 degrees Celsius track temps to get the heat into those tires. So I would suspect the next laps are going to be even a little quicker.
I think so, as well as the tires approach their optimal window. 7th place, Levaik. Not the way I think he would have wanted to start off. Push the next couple laps to push himself up the board. Here's Marchand, meanwhile. He looks to now respond with his respective time. These lap times going to be quickly moving along in this session, nearly going off track there, just avoiding the edge of the sand trap.
It's a little bit of a bobble that's going to obviously affect that lap time, and just remember the top 3 mathematically still have a shot at this championship, so we want to keep an eye on the 45, the 775, and the 917 cars on your scoring monitor there to see who ends up ahead of the other. Could be a factor after qualifying.
Tommy Landry 1/10 quicker than Marchand up on the board. Lawson amongst those you have to keep an eye on in response. Not able to jump up ahead. DeWart, meanwhile, 5th place now up on the board himself. The ASR logoed machines dropping back to 6th, in fact, now. 9 drivers have set times in the session. Brett, the last of those drivers currently, looking to complete a second time around. It appears 3/10 up, jumps his way ahead of the 74 once the BMW is here today. A little bit of a smaller grid, we'll say, for the finale, but some opportunities for some as a result to say it's free real estate.
Right, and I was just going to comment, over the course of the season, we've had, some 23 or so drivers take points in this championship. That's fantastic, and it's to be expected at the last race of the year. I don't care where you are. You do seem to get some people that drop off, real or virtual, and that's okay. We've got the cream of the crop, and we've got some great racing still to be seen ahead of us tonight.
Lawson looking to pick things up, though, on the 3rd lap around this time, the test racing machine. currently 5th in qualifying. Last time, a 1:36.9. The current pole time for the class, Levick has it with a 1:36 flat. How does Malonson react and respond? A little bit of a slide, a little kick up of the sand once more. Malonson coming out of the final corner. Third time around, he's 7/10 up this lap. If he can track that, he'll put himself in the top 2 for now. Yes, he does. 1:36.220.
Great run indeed.
Especially seeing some of the adjustments possibly coming in, we may see some responses, including Jonathan Beaudry responding 3/10 up on his 4th time around coming.
Here's where that part of the racetrack where you've got to feather the throttle a little bit carefully coming out of the front straight before you put the power down.
And that makes it so intriguing, that balance for the setup as well. You have to think about that balancing act, so to speak. How do you plan your aerodynamics for this car here for a track like Zandvoort here today, knowing there's some elevation changes, tiny bits of camber and banking in some of the corners, but also some sections where you do need a bit of straight line speed, but not as long of straights compared to Barcelona, not even close.
Right. I mean, typically this track is kind of a high downforce track with a soft suspension setup to get that balance.
And we've seen some of the drivers really carrying themselves through the corners. Watson pulled off. Arjan looks to pull up on the board. Started off with the pace early on in this session. This has been a decent sector for him for that time up on the board. 2/10 picked up this corner alone. Can he maintain it? Yes, he can. This would bump him up in about 2/10 quicker, and will, but not up on position, the 1:36.3s. As Levick continues to look strong, he is on the pace. If he can pick up a few tenths like everyone's done in the final corners, maybe battle and rip away the pole again from Beaudry. Seems like that strength for many of these cars has been Arie Luijendijk to be able to pull that time forward.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just wondering, right? That's that long sweeping combo between 14 and 15. You get it right, and it just seems like there's the difference. Oh, off track, though.
That's going to invalidate that possibly, yes. If not, maybe have them reconsider this portion of the lap and regroup for the next time around. So Levick may be forced to back it off a little bit with that mistake.
Yeah, I mean, Levick's going to have a little bit of dirt on the tires that's going to have to be scrubbed off. So, yeah, I think this one is obviously in the books now as a write-off, and he'll just probably focus on the next lap now.
Beaudry losing time this lap in particular. This has been one of the better qualifying runs. Credit to Beaudry on this night so far. Beaudry has looked strong himself. He's the first driver mathematically out of range for the Pro-Am title, but he is 4th, looking to solidify that tonight over Marchand currently, up 14 points.
And he's had 2 top 3s in the standings. Obviously, he wants to finish the season off, making it 3 visits to the podium.
Especially if he can start off with a solid track position on the circuit. Really backing things down to build up some heat in these tires. Some of the drivers, as mentioned, swapping in and out for the pit lane, making some adjustments, getting some fresh rubber utilized, possibly respective cars, to make sure they're in that optimal window.
And look at the manufacturer balance at the top of the order. And when I think we've seen some great parity throughout the whole season, these 8 races, within the manufacturers and the BOP between them.
We've seen some races where the Bentleys have looked really strong. The McLaren has looked outright dominant at 1 or 2 of the tracks, for Levick in particular. The Ferrari and Malonçons look very incredible with him behind the wheel. You have the Lexus really looking strong in both Pro-Am and Pro. You also throw in the Aston Martin that's been in the conversation for podium runs all throughout the season. A great balance. Oh, and by the way, the 6th place car is a BMW.
You know, and I hats off to EGT Canada, because I think that's the kind of stuff that they look at and have done a great job in putting together when they selected the 8 tracks for this series. 8 tracks that complement a manufacturer here and there, and vice versa at another track. So I think they've done a fabulous job of balancing out the 8 races.
I think so as well, and it's going to be intriguing how things fare out next coming months when it comes to next season's competitions seen earlier on in the action, especially with plenty on the horizon to talk about.
We're just getting down to a few more minutes left in this Pro-Am qualifying. And I don't know, Beaudry's still hanging on there.
3 minutes or so left on the board. In fact, Melanson looking to respond. Only a couple 100s up, however. Not be enough to bump it ahead. Quite enough up on the spots, but might be good to start off the next lap. Keep an eye on Melanson, who needs to pick up about in regards to the potential of the pole time. A whopping 5/4 or so. Looking at some of the errors crossing the stripe, Tommy Landry, amongst those looking to bump ahead, needs to pick up a fair bit of time. About 9/10. He's only picked up 3/10 this qualifying lap so far.
And Tommy Landry again, coming off a second place finish, I believe it was. Yes, the second place finish of the last race. So again, looking to do a one step better in the final round.
Love the look of this car in particular with that bluish-white neon look that the Aston Martin has going for it. That supersonic look really fits this respective car body.
Agreed.
Coming up to the final sector right now for the braking marks, Landry. Half a second up already this lap now. Can he keep it up? 6/10 now. Lost a little bit of ground coming out of turn 12. Kumabach and Ari Leindijk will be the major indicators. Tries to ride the rumble strips, picks up a few 100s, looks to gain a little bit more coming out of the final corner. This would not be enough for the pole, but it might be enough to bump him into the top 3 provisionally. Yes, indeed, 3rd place, Landry. Melanson ready to respond back, however. Not enough for the pole, but it's enough for 2nd.
Everybody's starting to show something here in the last under 2 minutes, I would say.
Drivers have about 1 minute and 45 seconds, at most a lap, if not 2, for some of the competitors they have left to work with. DeWart, 6 still on the board. Marchand's already parked his car. Not going to be able to get out in time to record another lap. Once those still pushing ahead are DeWart, Melanson, Levaik, Landry, along with the road to Geese and Collins. Only driver gaining time on this lap, however, is Melanson, but it's only a couple 100s. He needs to gain more time to have a chance. He just lost all his time, though, you see on screen, because he's all over the track and off the circuit.
And Levaik just went by, I believe, the front straight as well. So has he got time for another lap himself and see if he can improve?
Looks like a majority of the drivers starting to make their way towards the tow truck with the start of pro qualifying on the horizon. 4 drivers remaining on track. One that's in potential regards to gain time right now is General DeGeese in regards to significant margins. He just lost all that, though. A little bit slower rotation, Glenn. That's cost him a full 10th.
Yeah, it did, for sure.
So how do you counter-react that as a driver to make sure you don't lose that time in the race?
Yeah, regroup. He's gonna figure out what went wrong through that part of the racetrack, and if that's his Achilles heel for this race, he's gonna have to figure it out in a hurry.
That bubble right there was another couple 100s, for example. Jeff Collins has a chance to maybe gain a bit of ground, but it might be tight in regards to how that time fares out. Drivers about to make their way onto the track for the pro side of the qualifying card for the final time this season. Pro qualifying is underway, and one driver's already in the wall. One car has spotted on the pit exit. The rest of the drivers wait to figure out a way around. Boulanger and company, though, were able to run away from it. Not the way one of those drivers wanted that to start.
No, and I was trying to figure out what color that was, and I thought, geez, that wasn't a purplish car, was it? That looks like the ones I'm thinking of are on the track.
Believe that might have been possibly Racine in regards to one of those cars from that team.
Maybe,
amongst those who got by cleanly, Levaik has stopped on the track to finish up his times, though. The pro and drivers have completed things. Beaudry, Melanson, Levaik, tentative top 3. Looking to bump them ahead. I should say now are the pro drivers. 13th on the board amongst those, still looking to set the times, of course. Bordeaux looks to lead the charge, though, for the session.
That is just an example, I think, of what we're talking about with these temperatures being as cold as they are and coming out on those cold tires. He just lost it in the pit lane. And I think you're right. I think that because he was one of the last cars to come out, Racine was.
especially after the retow, to be able to regather himself back up, to be able to get back going without any harm. Qualifying, ready to be up on the board for the pro drivers in this line. Yeah, Bourdois leading this train as mentioned. Few drivers looking to get some draft Bourdois amongst those who would do so. Let's follow along with the lap now for Bourdois as he looks to lead it in through Tarzan.
Looks good and clean.
And smooth.
Yeah, see how you just, all this nighttime, it looks like it's getting a little bit lighter right there. I know that's not possible with the Pro-Am guys, but I don't know why. It just feels like it got a little bit brighter out there. Maybe it's got good headlights.
Well, that in the sky is getting a little brighter, so you're right on that mark, which may help a bit with the visibility portion of the session.
Yep, that's where I was going with that.
Absolutely. Another one's North Holland in particular. Bourdois, 3, 4, 5 tenths up compared to the top Pro-Am time.
Of course, I didn't do my homework and find out what sunrise time is there.
Well, I will say this. When it comes to this racetrack, it's going to be pretty tricky, regardless of the conditions as talked about. You can see when drivers like Bourdois will want to get track position early on, especially with some of the bumping he's had as of late. That's seen him shuffle down the point standings a little bit in some of these rounds. He's still in second, yes, but there were lots of points left on the table.
Oh, absolutely there were.
Let's see if he picks up a good start to the session. How about 1.2 seconds quicker? A 1:35.3, 4 tenths should say. Regardless, a blistering quick lap to start things off. Shente, Boivin, Boulanger amongst those putting in the times. Boivin, couple 100s, couple tenths should say off. Here's Racine, seen amongst those looking to bump ahead after his troubles on the pit exit. His respective group, he'll start things off looking well as well. Top 5 in qualifying.
Good start for sure. And as we mentioned with the Pro-Am drivers, for the Pro drivers, as we mentioned, the 99 has it all locked up, but you want to keep your eyes on the timing pylon here for the second overall in the championship right now, between the 432 and the 717.
Especially with some of the battles that have happened with those respective drivers throughout this campaign, as we've discussed. The 432 first, 717 third. Here's Moisan. He's really had to put out some elbows as of late.
Yeah, that's right, hasn't he? My lord.
Yeah, not just when it comes to Barcelona, but Laguna Seca comes to mind a little bit with a lot of the shuffling there. He's really been having to fight, especially with drivers like Shente, have to hold those cars off to be able to maintain the positions and then make sure they don't get slammed into the doors.
Right, and you know, just watch this car. Look it through these corners. When you talk about door banging, it's going to be tough to get side by side through some of these corners. They are just flat out narrow for two cars.
It's a very tight racetrack, you're right on that mark. Especially when it comes to this facility, it can get to where you need to be smart in that regard because of that tightness you refer to. Here's Racine, meanwhile. About 2.5 lanes, maybe 3, you can fit in towards Tarzan. 6th place still in qualifying for the 223. Beaudry still up there on the board, give him credit. He's still in 7th in session. Melanson still in 9th, with a few of the pro drivers already making their way back to the pit lane to make adjustments, like Carl Howery.
No, that's something that we watched as it came into the pits there. It is a quick and tight pit entry, if I say so myself.
Yeah, that will be a major possible bottleneck point, because you don't take that entry well, you might hit the barrels and be stuck in the middle of the entry. So how do you attack that then to make sure you're not that driver who hits the pit wall?
Yeah, right. I mean, you've got to hit your mark, get on your brakes, and get that car woed down, and it's a matter of being disciplined. I think is the first word that came to mind for me, is because you come off of that run through 14, 15 with a lot of speed, and then you get, look at it's just to your right there. You got to get woed right down. So I think it's a matter of discipline of getting that car under control and braking and turning at the same time.
Orlois, by the way, a little bit quicker that qualifying run, 1:34.7, and looking to respond, jumps back up to third, 35.1. Orlois has really set the tempo early on in the session, the Porsche. Looking really solid in regards to some of the air cars that have had some slippery moments and or not been getting as close to the curbs as Bordeaux has been able to. Here's David Susi, currently looking to jump up to 9th position in the BMW, second for his grouping.
Keeping an eye on that BMW, he is looking good, and you're right about the curbing. You know, there's and where have we seen this car have its problems before?
Bordeaux hard into the wall in the middle of the session. That's a way to tilt the car, you could say. David Susi.
Yeah, he's you know, you don't want to get on the rumble strips and the curbing too much in this racetrack, as we saw in the other qualifying session with Marchand, how that upset his car in that run in the qualifying. It's a track you want to try to stay off some of these curbs for sure. There's no doubt about it. They can really upset the car quite a bit.
And keep in mind, this is a racetrack that's had a lot of redevelopments and changes. For example, in the 1980s, there were a couple of configurations. The 1980 to 89 layout, 19 turns. Then they had that shuffle to what was a club circuit, so to speak, for a few years. Then it regathered itself to a full length by 1999. So it's gone through a lot of changes in configurations where it essentially is considered a rebirth of the circuit that happened in the 1980s, late 1980s to the early 1990s, with the interim having that club circuit available while they converted things with its new operating company at the time.
Yeah, kind of. You're right. Several rebirths along the road for this track.
And at one point, keep in mind, the track had longer straightaways in that regard, where you also had Arie Luyendyk not being part of that section. Tunnel West in particular had a much longer strength before some of those reconfigurations, but much less turns in terms of chicanes. Bordeaux continues to make his way well through some of these chicanes, though, in this session. Still 2/10 up over the next closest car in qualifying. Looking like he might be able to hold on for the time being throughout the session. How will this lap fare out? Can he bump that up a little bit? Nope, it's a warm-up lap, in fact. This time up to speed, in fact. The top four all elected to come back out of the racetrack with some fresh boots to try and put in a fly right at the end of the session, especially with the daylight popping up, no wind to factor in, the track conditions still fast, the track conditions still cold. If you want to set the time, it has to be now.
Yeah, you know, just a little over 5 minutes to go. So absolutely right. Probably their strategy is exactly as you just called it. A little bit starting to get into that daylight, get some fresh booties on, get that lap.
There's Volkswagen trying to sort things out himself right now. 19th in qualifying, last of the Pro Class drivers, but is looking to bump it up a little bit. Good final corner sector there until he hit the curb. This might be, and looks to be, still a 10th up. Will this bump him up the spot? No, it does not. Auerie's still ahead of him. Here's a look at amongst the drivers looking to pump up their times now. After their warm-up run, Shentag, currently a couple 100ths up, now 2/10ths up into the braking zone.
So far, so good then for Shentag.
And he's got a clean racetrack ahead. In fact, he's leading a 4-car train right now, off through Block 10, all the way up to Hans Erst into the chicanes.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he wants. I mean, this is a perfect scenario. He's got that nice, clean track in front of him, and for quite some time. So it's his best opportunity, probably, I would say.
There should be the aerodynamics to factor in. Yes, the draft can be a factor at some tracks, but it has been a major talking point in some regards to this type of racing, trying to figure things out when you're in traffic. Shentag, with that clean space, looking to move up a few spots. He's on track for the top 2. He will do the top 2. Shentag a 1:34.9. How long will that last though? Because Boulanger, he's on track to take second right on back in a moment.
Interesting, as we watched that, I was watching behind him. I was watching Bourdon come through that last couple of corners, and he wasn't taking the exits quite as much as Shentag. And I think obviously the difference in the lap times might have been that little bit of extra, maybe 6 inches to a foot on the exit of the corner that he wasn't taking.
Boulanger, meanwhile, looking at his best possible qualifying run of the season, finished in 4th spot last time out at Barcelona. The Ryan E-Racing car. Looking to track up to second still. Good corner exit, 1/10 up. Will this be in the conversation for the pole? Possibly no.
Oh.
Still in second, about a 10.5 back.
And we still have a different manufacturer in each of the top 5 positions. Again, parity for the Pro class as well.
The first repeat manufacturer, Bourdon, still in the McLarens in 6th position, followed by a couple Bentleys. Bourdon got on track to improve his pole time right now. He's a couple 100 slower than that. Keep an eye though on the 22 this time around, I think, Glenn, because with him having maybe 1, if not 2 laps to do so, he is on track to possibly rip the pole away. He's up a couple 100s again. He needs a 10.5, remember, to take the pole away. He just threw it away though with clipping the grass there.
And he was in that blanket of cars at last race, really had a fantastic run.
Bourdon just looking to solidify things meanwhile. And I think this would be very helpful, to say the very least, when it comes to 432, to really distance himself away from Shentag, albeit by about a row, if not by just about not too much at all distance, should really say. Regardless, with him being in control for the green flag, essentially, when it waves, it's prime position if he times it up right with Shentag starting the row behind currently.
Yeah, if he can get a good run off the start of the race and get through one cleanly, he's got a lot of racetrack to settle himself into position before he really get into the next corner, which is 3, because 2 is just kind of a, oh yeah, that was a corner. So if he can get away properly and quickly, he might set himself up for a real nice start.
By the way, Bourdon, come to the 1-minute mark in the session and start of sunrise. Here's in the sky. The pole time, it's been raised. The bar is up to 1:34.515. Might be untouchable, despite Boulanger picking up a few tenths this lap so far. Bourdon, meanwhile, looking to try and get to the top 5. Moisson has already ended his qualifying session. This to rip away the position. No one in track to potentially jump higher than him. Bourdon is able to jump higher than Moisson. Top 5 in the session, 7 tenths off the pole. But here's the man we have to watch. Last time, really good chance to be able to solidify a great run. Be able to possibly battle with the initial pole mark moments ago.
He found,
right now, not easy.
No, as he found the 3 tenths.
He's found 2 of them right now. Can he make the 2 tenths, if not 3 tenths stick? Checker flag waits up on the stand for qualifying. This will be his final shot. Levan has already jumped up to second. Lots of time lost in the final corners for Boulanger. Hits a bit more of the curbing. Boulanger was on track possibly, but with the bad run coming out of turn 12, it'll only be about another 10th or so gain up on the board. Good enough for second, not enough for the pole position in the Bentley. And that just about concludes qualifying. Drivers look to close out their laps. 5 are still on track, including Kevin Racine, who is still in the 6th position, also with a chance to be amongst those top cars, possibly here.
Yeah, he's got a long way to go, obviously, for the pole, but I can maybe try to improve a spot or 2.
If you're Bourdon, keep in mind he is in a great spot to make sure he is top 5. If not, possibly top 4. Shentag has not improved at all this lap. Bourdon has improved massively. Will it be enough to hold on in front of Racine? They are close in their improvements. Off the track goes the last of some of the cars. Bourdon jumps up for 5th still for now, but it's Racine. Can he hold on and gain up? He needs 3 tenths to be able to jump ahead. This time under 2 tenths gained, Not enough. A couple 100s back. But with that, qualifying has come to a close in what was a pretty thrilling session, to say the very least, to close out Season 5.
I agree. I was just about to say the same thing. I was holding my breath a few times on some of those laps to see what they were going to pull, and it was a great qualifying run by everybody.
Some terrific qualifying runs in particular for drivers who really needed them. Bourdois amongst those. Boivin, top 5 in the final race of the season as the series champion. Keeping my eye on some of the drivers battling in that Pro-Am side, possibly, Glenn, because they are all bunched together for a rare occurrence amongst them. Usually there's a separation of a couple of pro cars to the next closest Pro-Am for the size pole. Instead, Beaudry, Melançon, Levaque, all within a couple tenths of a second at the end of their session.
Yeah, exactly. And they've really brought it for this final round for the championship. It's going to be exciting. I think we've got a lot to watch in the Pro-Am for sure.
The top speeds in qualifying, Bourdois had one of the quicker speeds overall in Sector 1, 246 kilometers an hour. Boivin, quickest Sector 2 at 253. Boulanger, 251 in the final sector. The best sectors, Bourdois, Shentag, Bourdois. In regards to Sector 1 down to Sector 3, which in turn helped get Bourdois on that pole time by 0.250 seconds at 1:34.515 for the final race of the season.
Final race. Wow. What a great season it has been. Down to the final one already. It's hard to believe.
Drivers having the opportunity right now to make their final adjustments before they get the rundown time for today's racing action. It is a 4 a.m. in-sim start time for the 1 hour up on the board here today. Drivers will be racing from the darkness into some of the sunlight as the sun rises here in the Netherlands today. Warm-ups are getting themselves forward to be able to make their adjustments here today. And Bourdois starting on the pole for the class today. Boulanger, Boivin, Shentag, the top 4 in the qualifying session. Bourdois and Racine amongst that top 6. Overall, 23 drivers have made their way to today's race at Zandvoort. Your picks for this one, first of all.
You know, I feel like I want to go with Kevin Racine. I don't know. I just think I want to go with him for this race, and I think on the Pro-Am side, I just have a feeling Melançon.
I'm liking Melançon too with regards to consistency, but I'm keeping my eye myself on a driver like Shentag, who's looking for momentum here today. Once again, run down the grid. Bourdois and Boulanger are on the front row today, followed by Boivin and Shentag. Row 3, Bourdois and Racine, Moissan and Dubé are in row 4. Kachunas and Susi start inside the top 10 today, with Mador and Beaudry, the top 12. Beaudry once the first of the Pro-Am cars. Melançon and Levaque will be right with them, 13th and 14th. Awari qualified 15th alongside Tommy Landry. Bilodeau, quiet qualifying session for him in 17th, with Marchand in 18th. Holtz Rushlow will start in 19th, DeWart 20th. The last of the drivers entered today, Jeff Collins, Jerome De Geese, and Barrett round out the 23 cars taking the green today. Your keys to victory here tonight as cold track conditions, dark track conditions, but lots of intense racing coming up by the end of the night.
You know, it's going to be an interesting transition, Justin. I think with that cold, I just noticed that when we were wrapping up qualifying, the track temperature did change very slightly. It changed, got a little bit warmer, 1 degree. That's it. But just even look at the asphalt here with these headlights gleaming off it. Does it not look even a little shiny to you right now? I mean, that's one thing you got to think about when you get that nighttime, early morning dew into that transition of the sunrise. So I think the keys to this race are going to be focusing on your driving in the dark, managing your car, your tires. You're going to be starting off cold, and then depending on how hot the track gets, I mean, it's going to be early morning, so I don't think we're going to get really extreme heat out of the track conditions when they do get into some of the daylight situations. So I think managing the driving at night and keeping your wits about you is the last race of the year.
2 minutes for drivers to be able to make adjustments you see on the session start clock. That's to give them the last opportunities to be able to make setup changes. It's important to make sure those are in keep in mind, Glenn, because For those watching along with sim racing action for the first time, that's in regards to what you can have in the car in terms of how it is mechanically, setup-wise, etc. You don't get that nailed in right, or your right setup, let's say, accidentally putting your Q set instead of your racing setup. Usually it's a bad sign for the day, and we've seen drivers miss the start because they swapped with less than 30 seconds on the clock, not get back in the car in time.
Exactly. I was just going to make that point too, right? That we have seen that, so you've got to make sure you keep an eye on that clock and don't miss that time.
And you see how that darkness fares out too, because you mentioned the visibility. There is not really any lights here under the darkness at Circuit Zandvoort. Hence the importance of those headlights today. Most of the drivers are having the low beams on, by the way.
Yeah, when you're racing at night and those cars come up behind and you've got the headlights flashing in your mirrors, that's a distraction as well. So that's one of the keys as well, not to get blinded by the light. I think there might be a song in there somewhere.
I think there is too. It will come to us someday like a shining light.
Don't worry, I won't try to be a comedian anymore.
Either way, 30 seconds until the drivers get rolling. Last the drivers making their adjustments, you see what they're bouncing and banging with some of their cars too. Make sure they have that materials good. Yes, indeed.
Yep. Last of the butterflies, reach down, tighten those belts up. We're about ready to go, and then put it all on the line. And sometimes that's another factor here. It's, hey, it's the last race of the year. I got all winter to fix it, so I'm going for it.
You see all the engines starting to rev up and fire with some of the lights on. That is a consideration for drivers too. With that fuel mark of trying to stretch as long as you can towards the very end. Being able to save that fuel before you get rolling for the pace lap, also a part of that factor. It's time to get rolling for the safety car lap, for the rolling start and the green flag from race control for the trigger, and Bordeaux in control once we get things rolling for the green itself. And tire warming going to be critical with that, these dewy conditions, these dark conditions, these cold conditions, and these everything conditions.
Yeah, and let's just keep an eye on, see how much weaving back and forth. If you're not familiar with that, that's what you'll see, guys. Why are they going back and forth across the racetrack? Just like this right now, while they're getting heat into those tires. As much heat as they can possibly get. It is their friend, and they need a lot of friends right now.
We'll see how friendly these drivers are here for the finale. Keep in mind some of the drivers before tonight's action and mention hoping things stay clean for this finale in particular. So I'm intrigued to see if everyone's able to do so by the end of the night. Lots of people excited to see this finale tonight from Zandvoort.
I'm excited for the first turn of the first lap and then the last lap. But I don't want it to end too soon because it's been fun.
Keep in mind, some heavy sends have been seen at this track in the past in regards to the hard braking zone through Tarzan. I can tell you at least 5-6 times I've seen massive big ones in turn 1, but also in turn 3 throughout the various sims. Beaudry in mind, he's in a great spot for the Pro-Am side if he can keep himself out of the potential craziness that can happen up front, because he might be able to try and pull away from the rest of his grouping in regards to fourth on back in the points. His championship rivals first and to third. They'll be looking to do the same and or find a way around Beaudry to get max points.
And again, max points is a first place finish at 25.
25 points to max points, 22nd, 16 for third, 4 points. Fourth is 13 points. Then it's 1 point on down to 15th position. A lot to think about for many of these drivers as they get ready to double them up, heading towards the final corners here.
So when I was looking at that too, we talk about the mathematical chance that you hear about in racing and other point scenarios. For Landry to win this championship, he'd have to, if he scored first place points and his competitors didn't score any points, he'd have 122. So that's what we talk about, you know, those mathematical chances. Starting to form. I didn't see a lot of tire weaving, actually, to be honest with you, and they're starting to form up now and get ready for this one.
It's been a dramatic season. From the start of the year all the way up to the end of spring. But now it's time to close it out in style. Season 5, Round 8 from Zandvoort, all set to go for the EGT3 Challenge Pro Series. Green flag waits up at the stand. And we are underway from Zandvoort.
That seemed like a late start for the green lights there.
Near contact already into the opening corner, 2-3 wide for some. Hard braking, hard stack-ups, no spins though. Bourdouin holds on to the opening corner.
Perfect. Everybody got through. Perfect.
Bourdouin looking to pull some distance already after the great lunge and the great start from the cars on behind. Boven already up to second. He gains 3 car lengths towards the middle sector.
And that's what we talked about. If you get away early, he's got a little bit of racetrack before he started getting into that twisty stuff with starting at turn 3, and that's exactly what he did.
Amongst those who didn't get the greatest of launches, Boulanger already back to 4th. Under attack by Racine. Racine new into the back bumper. He's bringing Bourdouin, Moisson, and several others with him.
Single file, though, I don't think anybody's trying anything too well. As I just say that, looked like thought maybe that Racine was going to try something there, but he just looked to the outside. That was all. Just getting a little wider line, I think he was.
Different lines, some different chances being taken. Can Boulanger hold on for the end of the first lap? A lot of pressure behind for the hard brake. Not close enough for any lunges, though, anybody quite yet. Here's Cat Junis. He on a quite qualified run. He's up to 8th in this train as he tries to keep up the track. It's very edge and does.
One just off the outside of the racetrack, got back on, didn't lose any position.
Few drivers very close to having some off tracks. Jeff Collins had a few possibilities, but Racine so it's fine at the end of the first lap. Purple lap starting to be set on forward. First flying laps about to be paced on in as there's McLaren poking behind. Bourdouin too far back, but a much closer radius at the apex of the corner.
Had a look, obviously, like I said, too far back, just having a look. Nothing special right now as far as he's going to do anything silly. There's way too early in the race for that kind of stuff.
Especially with plenty of time up on the board. Oury, by the way, has already had to come to the pit lane. Is that a strategy call? We'll see by the end. He's tried that call a couple laps in before. Not in the first lap, usually. Here's Mador. He's trying to hold on in front of Melanson and company. Right now, Melanson in 12th position, trying to hitch onto the back end of the train and run away from the rest of his rivals.
And that's a long train. Look at that track map. Look at just how still close these cars are. I mean, they look far away, and yes, of course, there are 4 or 5 car lengths between some of them. But in this in this racetrack, it's not a big deal. They're still pretty tight in my mind.
Especially with drivers like Ben looking hungry to battle it out for the top spot on the racetrack. We've seen how aggressive he can be at times, but he's usually tactical with it.
He's very tactical with it, no doubt about it, and he has the championship, so he's not worried about anything there. The pressure's off. All he's worried about probably right now is that team points championship, and that's what he's after.
Here's the difficult part of that. Boyer is not in the race today.
Yes.
So he's having to score points on his own. He'll have to try and outscore 2 cars, which is a very tough task, to say the least. You need one of them to not score points, possibly, and have that chance.
And if you're joining us for the first time, they call this driver the alien, and I don't even think he has the ability to pull that one off as an alien.
Mador trying to pull things off in a very tight portion of the racetrack, not usually the main passing chance on the high side. Back single file, though, as that bottleneck, Melanson and company. There goes that cushion Melanson had for a moment.
That was an interesting challenge in an interesting spot. It didn't work out, and he didn't lose a lot of ground for it, so I guess he wanted to give that an early try.
The bike is right there and looking to take advantage of all this. He needs a near-perfect round for his respective class to be able to come away with the title himself and steal it away from Melanson. He needs some bad luck, though, for the 45 with a 16-point deficit entering today.
It's quite interesting as you look through the track map and all the twists and turns. There's basically 4 real action parts of this racetrack to consider for opportunities, really good, safe opportunities to pass turn 1, and you don't find the next one all the way till turn 10. Look at this side by side.
Mador, he's hungry to make a pass all the way to the edge of the runoff in the Turtles. That doesn't work. That loses ground, and after the bad run through Hansers, it is back to single file for the battle for 10th despite several lunges.
And guess what? If I'm not mistaken, I think that was in one of the spots I was just about to talk about where I wanted to get to that side-by-side battle. Car spun on the front straight now.
Backwards down the middle of the racetrack. That's Kachunas in the middle of the racing circuit. Kachunas already has towed the car, the 77, with problems. Mador with more. He spun one car. Malonson locks it up and avoids him. Malonson takes advantage of the lunges. Chaos brings all the way through to the final corner, to the first corner.
I didn't even know what happened with Mador there. It just looked like I don't know if he just lost a car. I'd like to see that again, but I don't know what happened to him there.
I believe Mador may have hit him in the right rear with the send to get the pass.
There you go.
That's caused a lot of bottlenecking. Purple lap, by the way, Boulanger. He is hungry for Shentag's position. Here waits the back door of Riley. Battle for third, heating things up. As a lot of things starting to boil over a little bit already. We're just about 6 minutes in.
Everyone is nice and calm. What happened, guys?
There were 3 sets of all minor contacts on the first lap, by the way. The 988 and the 775 touched at one point. The 223 and the 715, 241 in the 7 for those keeping track of the Boom Boom card today. Let's take a look at the replay. This is what happened with Kachunas in the middle of the track, coming out of the final corner. Wow. That looked like he was hopping on that exit for a second.
Looked like he lost it, did a little correction, and then of course it snapped back on him, I think, maybe, and that might have, I wonder if that was, I mean, it's hard to believe that was a cold tire situation, the 7 minutes into the race or so.
That could have been an absolute disaster, to say the very least, when it comes to Kachunas in his situation with the spot he was into, right at the corner exit, at the preferred line, right in the middle of the corner exit radius.
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, hats off to everybody else.
By the way, Tommy Landry amongst those who have already had to come to the pit lane as well and have taken the mandatory stop. Givado's also done the same. Boulanger, he's still trying to sort things out in this battle with Shentag. They've already lost about a second, though, to Baven and Bordeaux, who have started to break away and then some.
I wish I had a monitor of all their fuel gauges so we could kind of figure out when those stops are going to take place with those mandatories.
Let's take a look at what happened with Mador. You want to take a look? Well, he took a look at the position.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Good heads up from Malonson, by the way. Cutting right, gains about a spot or two from it.
Yeah, it looked like he obviously just tried to get inside of Susie there and just door closing.
Baudry, by the way, is also just passed by Mador after all that bumping and banging seen moments ago. Boulanger, he's starting to pick up a little tracking buddy to the back end of him. Racine has picked up a whiff of the draft for the straightaways. So this train going from 2 cars to possibly 3. Keep up with the race leaders. Boulanger again watches the sparks ahead.
I like the run he's having there. I mean, it looked like those two are equally matched at the moment.
Here's a look at Levike, meanwhile. Still in that battle for 10th, as well as the Pro-Am race lead. Susie still leads this respective pack, 5 seconds up the road as the next group. A yellow flag, by the way, is popping up, you may notice on the screen. That is Tommy Landry, who's had another issue and appears to be off the track now.
Not having a great race, that's for sure. That's too bad.
And you know what that means? The championship fight for Pro-Am, because of what you've seen with that yellow dot, is down to 2.
Right.
With 21 still running, take him out of the fight.
Yeah, and those two, where are they? Well, they're right behind each other, running 10th and 11th overall.
The lead is starting to compress a little bit, by the way. Shentag starting to get a little bit closer. He's picked up 3/10, him and Boulanger. And remember, the pace was picked up a little bit last time. Here's what happened to Tommy Landry and what has officially broken up his championship hopes.
Just seemed to go wide.
Look down on the apex of the corner as well. A tough run for Tommy Landry. Early pit stop, early retirement. 21 are still running on track.
Just maybe a little understeer through that part of the racetrack. I wasn't quite certain if I was thinking that was down through 14 and 15, but I wasn't 100% sure. Did you, if so, that could have been that feathering of the throttle that we were talking about and just kind of understeered it. Yep, okay, that's where it was.
7 and 8 was where the troubles were there. Mador, he's looking to stop a little bit of the backpedaling on the track. He's already dropped to 13th the past few laps. Now looking to fight again with Beaudry. Now march on from the Pro-Am class, also with them right now amongst the scrap.
Yeah, and that could be a factor there. If he can get himself moving here and recover from all that, then he's going to get into that mix for the Pro-Am Championship.
There's a little bit of a discussion in regards to some of the lines a few weeks ago in particular. Keep in mind, for some of the drivers who offer some passing movement advice markers, in particular from Racine, weaving back and forth, remember, keep in mind, is not usually an optimal positioning. We've seen a bit of that bobbling and weaving when it comes to some of the battles today, especially around Mador. Not so much when it comes to the race leaders, where they've stayed calm, cool, and collected. Or puff up a little bit of brake smoke.
Well, they may be calm, cool, and collected now, but we have another 48 and so minutes to go. And we know what happened at Barcelona with, was it 4 cars battling it out. So, hey, anything can happen still. I'm not holding my breath just that long.
That was going to be the next point to bring up, because remember, the leaders had a great start to the race, pulled off and away by as many as 3-4 seconds nearly. And then the tires looked like they started to melt a bit, and everybody gained up on them and became that 4-car scrap, including side by side a couple rows deep.
And I've got this feeling, I mean, that turned out to be one of the best races of the season, and I have a feeling that this one could shape up the same way and make it a spectacular end of the season.
The optimum track conditions may make it a bit easier for the tire wear for those prepared. Particular, keep in mind, though, is the Lexus you see still trying to sort things out Mador. Once one of the EGT Motorsport cars, who has taken a lot of licks himself when it comes to some of the battling himself this season. In particular, Laguna Seca comes to mind a little bit in regards to some of those scraps he's had to have.
Yeah, and obviously it's carried through to this race. He's had a little trouble in this race, finds himself marred further down in the field, and again, trying to make his way back up past it from some Pro-Am cars and make it a clean sweep of Pro cars at the top of the order here, but he's got a little bit of work ahead of him because of that little incident with Susi.
Marchand looks like he's content right now. Beaudry looking to try and settle himself down in this respective pack. They are losing a fair bit of time at moments right now to the next cars up the road, about 6 seconds or so. They have to try and close up, or so 3 should say. Here's split screen time as we look for the front bumper this time of Mador. See how bumpy some of the rides are. In regards to some of the aero wake, how about here we getting pushed to the grass, shall we?
And a little bit of sparks and fly.
Not the good kind of sparks, though. And I think showing this level too just shows that balance of needing to find the right ride heights for this track.
I swear, I think we're on the same wavelength. I was just going to say, look at the balance of that car. Great minds do think alike, that's what they say.
See some of that difference he's faring in with some of the aero wake picked up. Some of the drivers in pro competitions on various sims have made that major point where you have to think of 2 mindsets when it comes to building.
And
having a car good in clean space, but also in traffic.
Yeah, and you notice the distance, I mean, even through some of that cornering, they seem so equally matched, the setup and the driving of those 2 cars. They're doing a fantastic job. Both the drivers are, I think, doing a stupendous job. Beaudry and Mador both seem to be well-balanced in their cars. Like, there just doesn't seem to be any gaining, any losing in that little battle between them. Oh, wow, hey, looked like it was getting a little closer there, though. Mador got a little bit closer, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, he might have a chance here after a little bit of a mistake on the entry. Beaudry overran part of the corner. Mador not able to take advantage, but as we've seen this season, you give an edge to Mador, he'll try and leap through the door.
And there it is.
He tries to leap through it, Better run to the exit, though, to pull away. He gave him a little space there.
You just see it in the steering wheel, the car twitching back and forth a bit. He was getting antsy, he was getting excited. He was starting to seize that opportunity and didn't quite come to him.
Not able to take advantage of those runs and mistakes. He gives the space. He stays in the line. The door stays patient in 111 machine. GT right now.
And as we often see when a couple of cars start duking it out, what happens? Oh yeah, that car behind us is getting a little closer in my mirrors now. Look at the 14 coming in on the now. Marchand might be a part of this in no time.
Let's take a peek back at the battle for third, because Boulanger has still been one of the quicker cars on the track. That forward progression, though, we were seeing with them within 8/10 of Boven, it's dropped back to 1.8 seconds again over the past 5 laps.
It has, and when you look at the distance from first to second as well, Boven, you know, you never know with him where this is going to end. Right now, it's like, oh my gosh, he's 1.1 seconds behind. Oh my lord, he's so far back. But next thing you know, the guy's leading the race. So this ain't over with 44 minutes to go.
Keep in mind some of the speeds being carried around the racetrack. Bourdois and Boven amongst the top fastest cars in terms of total speed in sectors 1 and 2. On lap 7 moments ago, Marchand quickest speed in a sector at 255 kilometers per hour on that respective lap. Here's a look for the back end of Melanson. He still has a bit of a rival looking to say, I want your points, I want my chance, I'm going to hope to pressurize you into a mistake.
And that's all he can hope for right now, because they're both doing a bang-up job. Melanson's in control of his car. There's no anxiousness, there's no stress that seems coming from the pressure being put on from behind him. He's doing a great job.
And you're not seeing things if you just looked at the screen up at the pylon. Moments ago, it appears. How about matching purple lap times to the 1,000th of a second? Bourdois and Boven have tied the fastest lap at a 1:35.495.
Whoa, that doesn't happen too often. That's amazing.
And the lap that Boven last time around, he set that time mark. He did so by being 2/1,000th of a second quicker than Bourdois. Melanson is now in the fight meanwhile for 10th as this goes on, as they look to duke it out. Here comes the light. He pokes his way a little bit. He pokes another way to the right side.
It's getting racy. Yep, not quite close enough, you're right, but it's on. These two, it's going to be a great battle. This is the championship we're talking about. It's going to be intense.
The intensity level's definitely picking up for some. Here's a look at Boulanger. Still not able to get a run quite yet to close up, despite being 2/10 quicker last time. And this has been one of the better runs for Orion E-Racing from the jump. Meanwhile, Levaque, another peak, too far. In fact, nearly missed the apex.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You know, you want to be in part of this race, but you've got to be careful. You can take yourself out in a hurry. One quick little slip and that's it.
Continues to run on around and forward. Audrey, 2.9 seconds back. Here's the look at the battle for fourth again. Another hard break. Boulanger a little too deep on that entry.
Boulanger has one podium finish and it's a third place, so he's trying to at least equal that. Obviously, in the last race of the year, you want to surpass that, but at the same point, right now, he just wants to get on that podium, and he's having a good run in fourth.
He's had quiet runs, able to take advantage of drivers with some of the attrition as of late. Look at the second top 5. That podium came at Mazzano, which had some crazy moments. You also factor in Barcelona with the time penalty for Boven. He jumped up to 4th in the official pylon. Speaking of pylon will have a swap for 15th to Wart. Looking to move ahead, side by side with Jeff Collins. By the way, DeWart, one of the biggest movers of the race. He's up 5 positions this race.
Looked like almost, I'm not sure if they did touch or he's just making a little bit of an evasive move there, but obviously tight quarters between the two of them there.
Over them up 5, should say. In regards to that, many of the drivers towards the back take advantage of pit stops, as that was a little close with Collins. got within about a quarter car length.
That almost looked like ready to give you a little shove.
Jeff Collins looking a little racy and dicey in all this. Not able to force a mistake, though, for the car in front quite yet. Still, DeWard in the BMW being really hounded towards the back bumper with the hot, tight section. Same can be said with the McLaren-Bentley battle going on up the road still for the podium positions. Purple lap tie has been broken, by the way, but Ben did himself by 3/1000ths of a second last time by.
Just kind of curious if, Belanger is going to wait for that opportunity, if you know what I mean, like see a mistake in front of him, or if he's going to push the issue, because it's still relatively early. We're not even at the halfway point yet, but excuse me, once you get past that halfway point, I think it's time to start thinking about making that move or creating that move, if you will.
Like also thinking about that possibly too, because needs the max points possibly. You see how much he's been trying to push around. Here's the thought too. Beaudry & Company, they're gaining a little bit. Last time, 3/10 gain last time for them. Mador gained as much as 8/10 on these two.
Yeah, that's starting to shape up into a battle perhaps. We've got to keep an eye on that one as well.
But will there be cooperation to be able to make it not just a battle for 12th again, but a battle for top 10? We'll have to see. And that's the difficult thing too, yeah.
One thing I haven't looked at is where we're standing with like where the teammates within the team championship are laying on the racetrack each other. If there's any favors and help that they can do for each other in that team championship standings.
Test Racing, as we talked about, in a great spot to secure themselves the team title at this point. No name well. They're out of contention to possibly jump up to second since their entry for today is out. Team Orion might have a chance maybe to jump ahead. We'll have to see, but they only have one entry here today. There's a lot of layers to think about. By the way, purple lap, Belanger again. Give him credit. When he's about 4 car lengths back of the 717, he's one of the fastest cars on the track. In fact, the fastest.
Yeah, that's right.
He is within 3 or 2. He loses all that time in bunches.
Right. No, he has been one of the faster cars for sure when he's got that gap and he closes it back in. But you know what they say, I'm faster, but it's another getting past you.
This corner exit might be a good example. You see that weeble wobble? That's exactly what we're talking about, Glenn. Just that trouble in the aero wake.
Yeah, but Shentek did not fall down. There might have been a weeble wobble, but there was no fall down.
Jay again trying to prevent the fall down, not able to close things up yet. 13th up for grabs. Sean, he says it's time to go. Mador says it's time to late break and hope I stick it. He does.
Good one, yes indeed. That was perfect.
Good grip, we'll say, when it comes to that, to be able to hold on. It lost them a bit of ground as a pack, though. Belanger still looking to find a way around. And this has been the tough thing, it seems to be. One lap, he's turning the 135 time bracket. The next, he's a second slower, trying to find a little bit more slipstream with getting closer.
Right,
it's a pendulum swing of timing.
Yeah, totally. I think he's just trying to mind his own business and maybe even try a line here or try a line there, see where he might have something over Shentag that is a little bit better than he was a lap before, and maybe it's working out, and maybe it's not sometimes. And I just actually noticed too that we've gone up a degree. It's getting warmer. 15 degrees track temperature now.
Well, the sun's getting ready to say hello to the drivers pretty soon, with about 36 minutes on the clock on the season. Here's Mador. Mador, he's thinking about ascend. He's tried this look a couple times to force a mistake, or some pressure. Instead, he nearly has a mistake of his own coming out of turn 12. Run up to turn 13, too far back to potentially go for the lunge this time.
Too far back for the lunge, yep, and keep an eye in the rearview mirror because we got the 14 car closing in on him.
Remember, Marchand wants to go. He's getting a little bit antsy and dicey. See up the road, by the way, Levite took another peak, couldn't make a move, by the way. No peaks in this respective pack. Now this becomes the thought, with some of the drivers here, they have been, some of them, turning towards the midway portion for the stop. Do you make this call with how difficult it is to pass to say, I'm quicker raw pace-wise, especially if you're, say, Boulanger, where you're over the back bumper of the McLaren, get within a car length, lose time again, have to redo it all over again.
Yeah, I think these two waited out. I want to see them come in together, I think. I don't know if you want to split, because you don't know what you're going to get coming back on, I think, and then to see if it cycles through in the end for you. So I might just, I could be totally wrong, of course, but I just have this feeling we might see these two come in together.
We've seen that trend usually the case with Barcelona, that they've tried that. The drivers who are in the middle of those trains for braking for the pit entry usually are the ones who gain about a second compared to the first. It was there were a lot of close calls in Barcelona, let's put it that way, for the entry.
That's right, and then and of course, obviously, we don't know where they're at with the fuel mileage from manufacturer to manufacturer, and of course, one giving the other a tow lap after lap after lap could be having a factor on it as well.
Keep in mind, there are various mappings drivers can utilize depending on the manufacturer. Some have as little as 5, others have up to 12 maps available for the respective cars in this series. Mador has found a way around Beaudry this time, by the way. He's now half a second ahead of Beaudry all of a sudden. That came just a couple corners ago, by the way, that respective swap. How did that happen? Mistakes coming into play, potentially there. Here's a look at the battle for third.
Now we'll be interested to see how and if he can catch the battle in front of him between the two Pro-Am contenders for the championship.
About 4 seconds or so, they would have to catch up, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. See if that can, if that becomes a factor before the end of this race or not, or the field pit stops could change that.
Here's a look at the overtake that we have to see from above, because it'll be a little bit before this appears, because Mador did this in the previous sectors. Get a chance to regather that in just a moment or so with the tight darting about. But it's so easy to make a mistake, in particular in one of the danger spots you emphasize, turns 7 and 8, for example. That potentially put you up for grabs, or put you up for grabs, say in Tarzan. Here comes Boulanger, here comes the door. Contact with Shintag, Shintag drops the 4th.
Boulanger had a great run coming off of our Lyndike, and I could see him setting that one up. He was getting right up, picking up the draft on the front straight, and then made that great pass.
Here's another quick look at the replay. This is what happened with the mistake that you were referring to. In fact, this is towards the final sector. Massively slow. What happened there?
Just something maybe mechanically with the car, or did he, like, wouldn't even say that was a missed gear, just kind of pulled to the inside and lost power or something.
So as a result, the door up to 12, Boulanger with the send moments later, up to 3rd. Now this is the true test, because with how long he was behind there, they went from 1.2 seconds back 10 minutes ago on the clock to 3 seconds behind the next car.
Lost a lot of ground in that matter of time, and that's going to be tough to make it up. There's no doubt about that.
And last time after the pass, it was 0.3 quicker for Boulanger, by the way. He'll need to have that strong pace to potentially get back up there. He's been really solid in this sector, keep in mind.
It's going to be interesting to see what Shintag does here, and I say that because he's got to try to keep as close as he can to Bourdois in that battle in their own little championship fight. So with Boulanger in front of him, it'd be interesting to see if he's got that ability to close the speed back in and pass him back, because he's got a long way to go yet. There's no doubt about it in that championship battle for second overall.
It's getting a little bit brighter out there as Levi looks for a little bit of brightness for his chances. He still cannot find a way to fully close up it. Levi has been quick in this class. He's got a faster lap by 2/10, keep in mind. He's been quicker than by 2/10 some of these laps. He has not been able to sort things out, though, to really make a pass. It took that bull move for the battle for third Do you think it will come down to that for Levick now?
I think you're right. I think it just might come down to that move.
How do you pressurize that mistake, though, knowing you've got the championship leader in the wings and you need them to make a big mistake, possibly?
And that's just, you have to hope you can rattle him and get him maybe a little bit close enough. And right now, I don't think he's close enough to rattle him. He's there, obviously. I mean, don't get me wrong, but he's not like right on his bumper to rattle him.
It's the closest he's been able to get towards that bumper for some of these laps, keep in mind. Through some of the wiggles right there, a bit of a different line. Looking like he's just trying something different, see if anything can work. That may have built up something. Is he close enough to think about it? Not quite.
No, and
in fact, he had to brake earlier for it.
He did, yeah. And I think we're talking, I think maybe that's all this is about, trying different lines. He still has that half an hour to go now, just under half an hour to go now. So I think he's just trying different lines maybe, and maybe being patient for that big move.
I mean, the line Mador tried just there, you see in the background, doesn't seem to be the line. This may be the defensive line coming in, though. Malone, he might be up for grabs. Levick, not taking advantage to get the slipstream, though. He stays right along that outside groove. He stays the same distance back, in fact, loses ground in the draft. He's been slower in that front straightaway section, I've noticed at times tonight.
I got to tell you, I'm not sure I agree with what, at this stage, there's a lot of racing left to be done. I don't know if I'd be worrying about that defensive move so early. I actually think it made him a little bit upset on the exit of Tarzan.
At the same time, you can tell that little difference in balance possibly for the setups with the downforce you referred to.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Right there. More ground gained up for Malone, half a second up. Now Levick again having that struggle point coming up into play. In regards to this fight as the sun is now really starting to rise. Loose condition for the 45. He had a big wobble. Looking to battle for 14th on screen, but the battle going on for the Pro-Am lead is up for grabs. Levick taking advantage possibly of Malone lining up the rear tires coming out of turn 10. He's able to hold on to the Hansarts, though. Coming up to Kumobach, heading towards Ari Leindijk. The Ferrari looks to hold on and control his destiny.
Yeah, you know, that rattling may be starting to come into play after all.
And look at what's happening behind them. Mador was 3 seconds back 4 minutes ago. He is now within 1.2 seconds of the draft of Levick. And so the battle for the top 10 is up for grabs completely now.
For sure it is, and this is what we're talking about. He could be a real factor in this battle between these two. We've been watching together this whole race. Now Mador, bring him into this mix. He could have a real ramification to the championship battle here in the Pro-Am.
Could become a major pick, to say the very least, between the class battlers. Just past halfway, under 27 minutes to go on the clock. Orlois still in the lead, by the way, by 1.4 seconds. Boulanger, Shentag, Racine should say, inside the top 5 on the circuit. Levick getting close again. Lonson starting to struggle with rear grip. In some of these sections, another wiggle from the Ferrari. He looks a little bit deeper on the brakes again. Tries to avoid a bit of the curb, no major slide this time, but Levick still close for the draft.
I just have this feeling all of a sudden he has his hands full in a lot of reasons. Not just the pressure coming from behind, but his own car. I think he's got some handling problems, like you said, with the tires maybe falling off a little bit on him.
Mador really gaining ground again in this section. Keep in mind, another 10th. Now wiggle for both of them, and Mador throws the time away by going into the sand.
Way wide, way wide.
So take Mador out of the equation, but these two are still looking to fight like it's the final minute.
But if they keep fighting again, that Mador will probably find a way to get that time back again. Still a lot of cars on their run without pit stops, where we've seen some at the halfway point, but there's only still, just a couple of cars that have done so, and that was earlier in the race. We're past the halfway point by 5 minutes, and no mandatory stops yet.
First of those, by the way, is still Albury on the racetrack. He is about 4 seconds or so back, give or take, back to Barrett. Here's a look at Collins for reference, by the way. He has passed Marchand in all of this. And DeWard has passed by him as well. Marchand has really dropped back, possibly due to some of the mistakes building up for competitors at the halfway mark here.
Collins been pretty consistent. I think his best of the year is about an 8th place finish, but other than that, I think he's in around that 14th, 15th mark.
Heading back over to the Pro-Am lead once again. Mike once again too far back to be able to make the lunge yet. The thing is that McClure keeps poking, prodding, finding different lines, trying to make anything work. He's gone to the very top of turn 10 and block 10 to see if that would work to use the corner as a ramp. Hasn't worked.
Hasn't worked, and if anything, things have settled down, lost a little bit of that ground that he had just a couple laps ago. You know, we've got a good battle here. We've got a couple of mid-engine cars, Ferrari versus McLaren. So all in all, I think it's a great, as we talked about, manufacturer parity at the start of during qualifying. We're seeing it here in the Pro-Am Championship.
Tenth of a second loss for Levick, by the way, that time around. Really close, though, this time, heading to Hugenholtz. No sends in this section today, shockingly, since the opening lap. Taking a little different line, though. Doesn't work either.
And then Medor, again, needs these two to battle a little bit more than they are, obviously, right now, going single file, if he's going to have anything to do with closing in and get into that top 10 himself.
It's not just Medor now, though. Remember Beaudry? He's also closing in. 1.7 seconds back in Medor and getting quicker. In fact, he had his personal best last time in the 136.5s. These drivers battling upwards of nearly a second slower than Medor and Beaudry in some of these sections.
That's huge. A second is obviously in racing a lot of time. That is huge, the difference.
The Vike may need to go. He wants to go. He wants to go to the left? No. Once again, Malonson shuts the door. Medor right in the draft now. Making a 3-car battle, possibly coming up to 4 cars.
Yeah, he tried in one of those action spots, those popular spots, coming into the quick right-left. Turn 12 is a popular spot to try a move, and didn't quite work for him that time.
Lost a lot more ground. You see the time on the bottom of the screen? How about nearly a 1:38? Medor 8/10 quicker last time. Now he's within 1.2 seconds or so. But with each little peak, he gains 3/10. Trouble for Bourdouin. He's triggered a caution across the track. Localized caution for the 715. He's back going, though, as we still keep up with 10th.
10th overall, Pro-Am battle. Yeah, it's been this way for the whole race. They've been consistent. Go ahead, Justin. Sorry.
Was about to say that mistake just referred to moments ago for Bourdouin. Guess who's now within the fight to make it interesting for 6th with the mistake? Moissan and Dubé, who have been very quietly running 7th and 8th together this whole run.
Yeah, Dubé with that win, carrying the extra 30 kilograms. Yeah, he's been pretty quiet this race. Been kind of what seems an uneventful race.
His best run of the season, of course, coming in that time a few weeks ago. Pit stop in front, and that one should be expected. Bourdouin coming in on the same lap he went off the circuit. So he tries the different strategy. Oh, wow. In the battle for the Pro-Am lead. Will anyone bite? No. Will Medor be able to close up a little more? He's trying at least. They pass by Bourdouin, who's still in the pit boxes currently. Levick, a little bit hard on the entry. Makes it work, though.
Seems like they're going to be pushing these pit stops towards the tail end of the race, obviously, with 20 to go. We weren't sure at the beginning how that was going to be a factor, and it seems to be the case right now. We're pushing towards the final quarter of this race before we might see some of these stops.
It's not just Medora, as we talked about closing in. Beaudry is now nearly in their draft 2 for 10th, mind you.
Well, I thought for a second that Levesque looked like Levesque got a really good hookup off the corner, but didn't quite get the run I thought he was going to get.
Oh, we got a good hook up there, though. Just about. With the bobble. Another hard left side entry on the corner. And again, does not work.
Looked like he tossed a little bit of time away there.
He gained a little bit of back and then some, though. Here he goes to the left side again. Defensive line, Malone-Son, middle of the racetrack. Still makes it work to hit the curbing. Levesque again can't poke and prod his way past.
What do you think Levesque's doing a setup there? Lap after lap, he's doing that same move, lap after lap. You think there's one time he's going to try to trick him the other way? I don't know. Medora's closing in on them, though.
Not only that, Beaudry is within their draft 2 officially on the board.
Indeed.
Here comes the weaving, and here comes the pit stop. Levesque trying something different, nearly hits the tire barrier, but he is in the lane. He's gone for the undercut.
And I thought that was going to be, you know, the two that would come in together. They proved me wrong, and like you mentioned, he almost hit the tire wall.
Let's take a look at a race replay, though, because we mentioned Barrett amongst the cars who started today. In the midst of traffic, it's trouble with Ellery.
Went from wrong to worse.
And Ellery, by the way, was that first driver in the whole race who hit. Not great for his strategy. He was in a good spot to battle with Bourdouin. Not now.
No.
Bourdouin, meanwhile, it's been smooth sailing. He's been fluctuating between 0.9, 0.8 seconds to 1.4 seconds ahead. Boulanger, though, he has been creeping slowly but surely into this fray.
He has, but like you say, our leader has just basically been at his own pace, his own control, right from the drop of the green flag. He's had this race totally under his control and the way he wants it, obviously.
These three also in well control. Collins, the caboose of the three-car choo-choo run. Still a solid run for the RSSF racing machine. As it tries to take a peek, a little babble for Marchand, a little bit of a peek back to the right for Collins. No move yet. See if there's a pit stop in this respective pack. Malone-Son has gone for the reaction pit stop to Levesque, though. He's now peeled into the lane. Where will that cycle? With Levesque possibly being cycled about. Pit stop in this group. Marchand with the send for 11th.
Marchand does get the position. No, he got the position. Good move. Good setup.
So Collins pokes on in. Marchand sends it on in for a spot. And DeBoer nearly sends it off the middle of the apex. Oh, and there's a penalty. Malone-Son stop and go. 30-second penalty for that entry.
Huge. That is huge right there.
Unreal, and that may be the big mistake that could swing the championship towards Levesque's direction, as long as Levesque avoids trouble.
Yep, that could be it right there for Malone-Son. That's a tough one.
Following along with Dubé, his teammate for Test Racing. Currently battling for 6th. Looking at a possible fake out. No, they both avoided the line. Dubé thought about 3 wide with the lap car. That doesn't work, though.
Collins re-entering. Yep. Boy, this is going to be something if Levesque does not have any kind of an issue, and he's going to have to make everything he can to make the perfect pit stop and not get any penalties. It's just falling into his lap right now.
Keep an eye on that, on those points tallies possibly coming up towards the final minutes. Malone-Son likely having to serve that penalty in the next few moments. Dubé still looking him forward his way ahead for 6th still. And the light fully to the point where you might not need the headlights for the sight. Dubé set his sights for a moment to the inside, doesn't take it. Malone-Son is serving the penalty, though. Where will he cycle is the huge question. Barrett has also just had an issue entering the pit lane with him.
Well, this is going to be interesting with 15 to go, where this all settles down for Melanson.
Panic buttons starting to possibly go off. And remember that team championship scenario where if one of the two drivers for test racing didn't score points, it might open the door for advanced sim racing? Once the pit lane opens up for Dubé, the window is open for advanced sim racing to jump possibly in the team side, depending on how far back Melanson gets at the end of all the pit stops. Bourdois' lead, still 1 second the gap. It was down to as much as 0.6 this lap. He's pulled back ahead a little bit though. Although Boulanger is now within 2.3 seconds of Boivin at the moment.
And you know what? There he is again. He's like that. As we are Canadian, we can talk about those great hockey players. You don't know he's out there, but he makes an impact. And this is what's happening with the 99. He's making that impact again.
This is where he usually comes up clutch in some of these races, to say the least, when it comes to his speed. Here's an interesting thing, by the way, in those pit stops. You may notice up on the board, Dubé, once things cycle forward, is in 10th. A massive amount ahead of Bourdois and company. So Dubé's in a good spot strategy-wise. We'll see how he fares compared to the leaders. And you see the bobble for the 99. That loses a 10th. Boulanger gains a 10th on him in response.
That's right, and Dubé is right in there with a gaggle of cars in the overall points in the 50, so he could stand to gain quite a few positions at the end of this race if it works out for him.
Also, by the way, last car currently running on the racetrack in 20th overall. But remember, some of the drivers having that possible benefit of a smaller class for Pro-Am today, that could factor in about 9 or 10 entries, 7 points the minimum that could be scored in that regard. It still might be up for grabs, though, for Levaik, depending on how things fare with a 16-point difference.
That's true. That's true. A big factor there, and that small entry could potentially be the decider as well.
Levaik needs to win the class. He knows what the difference is between first and ninth. 18.
Ooh.
So keep an eye on that 16th place car on track and how, if anybody jumps ahead of him, it might cost him. Bilodeau is in front of him, but it's not the same class. Boivin not closing up. In fact, losing a lot of ground this lap, coming to 12 minutes to go.
Pressure's on. I mean, we watched this race start in the dark, and now with 12 minutes to go, the full light, there's no excuses. Everybody can see what they're doing. It's been a great job all through the dark. There's no question about it, but the pressure is on with 12 to go.
Especially with that thought process for the Pro-Am class. Did a quick rough count again to triple check things. 8 cars going classified on circuit in the class on the board. Everyone else is out. It's a 1-point difference if it's an 8 for Melanson, by the way. He needs to pass by the 18 to tie in the points.
Oof.
With how things stand.
And the other thing too, up front, there's as obviously we know Boivin's not worried about the championship. He's got that locked up. But as he starts to pressure Bourdois, the 432, Bourdois, don't forget, he's looking for his first win of the season, and so he might be looking at a little bit of pressure on that side of thing, wanting that first win and knowing who's behind him, trying to take it away from him.
And running away from him, though, is the critical part that's been able to help solidify things with 11 minutes to go. But here's Levaik. He is the one to watch. And as things stand, he is currently unofficially the points leader. He cannot afford a mistake. He also needs some luck to go his way. Melanson needs to pass 2 cars in the next 10 minutes to have a chance to hold on to the points lead by the checker. He needs to pass at least 1 to possibly tie it.
he's doing all that he can. It's out of his hands as far as what Melanson can do at the tail of the field here.
And remember, Levaik started off the season so strong, had some great performances right from the jump, but then it was Melanson, with especially his uptick in qualifying, that really solidified his pull ahead, and the last round in particular was the main reason the gap separated itself as much as it did.
And the top two also, through the course of the season up to this point, they've only had one penalty each, so they've been fairly consistent as far as keeping it clean on the racetrack.
And currently he's 15th overall on the racetrack. DeWart a fair bit back in the class on those who have pitted. We mentioned the speed of Boulanger still picking up more and more and more. He is still the fastest car on the racetrack in a lot of these sequences. He's within 1.7 seconds of the 99, but he needs 3 seconds of time gained to get up to the race lead with 9 minutes to go.
Yeah, I mean, he can see the 99 in front of him, but he's still a long way back in reality. He's going to do what he can, and I mean, he keeps turning off these quick laps. It's working for him.
It's really been working for him. Now our 10th gained in particular, his bread and butter has been the hard braking zones in 11 and 12 in clean space. Speaking of clean space, he'll get some. Pit stop up the road, Bavin. He was slowed down so much he put out a localized yellow, shockingly.
And I tell you, with just a little over 8.5 minutes to go, Bavin pitted? That's too early.
Will it work out, though?
We'll see.
Seen the undercut, fairly powerful for some. Levaik still looking to power charge his way. Now Bilodeau for overall positioning. He has 3 cars in his class who have not pit. Here's the monkey wrench and everything. He needs to be cycled ahead of Beaudry at the end of this race to win the title. He doesn't, it's still Melonson's title.
And that's a tall order to be cycled ahead of Beaudry, considering where they are in the track.
And you know who's cycling into 6th after the pit stop, Bavin? Very quick in the pit stop, I will say. One of the quickest. Dubé, remember, had that pit stop about 5-6 minutes ago. Cycled a fair bit ahead of everyone he had battled with in the race. Even he, with that deficit, is still about 12 plus seconds back. 74 has just had a pit stop, by the way, throughout the geese. So now it's down to a few more of the Pro-Am cars. Majority of the pro drivers to decide how this season fares out at 5 a.m. in Sim. The leader is in. Leader is in. Boulanger is in the lead now.
Bourdois' entry was nice and smooth.
Able to avoid traffic, but here's the big question. Where does he cycle with the 99 of Bavin ready to rip it forward? Down the front straightaway, off the jacks, and off toward the exit goes Bourdois. He tries to get up to speed. The 99 with some draft. It's a massive exit advantage for Bourdois. Very huge on the track. In fact, he gained a good couple seconds in the window.
That was a great pit stop, and he's obviously back up to speed and no trouble at all, so I didn't expect that he was going to lose any ground to Bavin on the pit out. He had a great pit stop there.
Gained 2 seconds in the window. That's how slow that entry was for the 99, it looked like, on his run. But now, this car has been on rails for parts of the night. He's got the purple lap. Can he make it count to make a conversation of the race lead?
He's got to put as fast a lap down as he can before making that pit stop and see if he can cycle out back in front of those two.
He might need the biggest entry of the season as well. Coming off towards the final corner. Might see him come in this time. We'll see if he does. Is there a peak? No. He'll try and keep going ahead. He might be going for as little fuel as he can in the tank to see if that will work.
Yeah, there's a little fuel and burn off his fast lap after fast lap. Again, he's got to get seconds. He's got to build up a few of those cushioning seconds for that re-entry after the cycle.
Here's a look at the battle for ninth still. Beaudry and Dubé are now amongst those scrapping. Beaudry yet to pit. Dubé third amongst those who have peeled into the lane so far. See how things play out in terms of smartness. Moisant, by the way, has peeled off and away into the lane himself.
Yeah,
about to gain a couple spots here.
You're right. If I'm Dubé, I wouldn't. If I know that he has to make that stop in front of him, I'm not going to press the issue and cause perhaps a crash for both of us. You know you're going to get that spot on the pit stop.
Under 5 minutes to go in the season. Into the lane goes the car in front. That is Beaudry. And that could be the huge wrench in the battle for the Pro-Am title. Levaik really being held up by traffic currently. Beaudry, he's still trying to make his way to the pit stalls. Where will things turn out for Levaik to be able to try and become the unofficial points leader?
Oh, he desperately needs to get past that Bentley.
He's still trying to. He's got a bit of drop. The 163 is off and away. Beaudry is passed by Levaik. Levaik has cycled ahead of Beaudry. With 4 minutes to go, Levaik is in control of his own destiny.
Wow.
Battle for sixth, up for grabs again. Have we seen this before with these two?
Mm-hmm.
They've traded paint before. They've battled it out this race. Dubé again a look to the inside, can't make it stick.
And it is a tight battle at that. No questions there.
Still trying to peek it out. The official confirmation on the statistics, by the way, for that net gain for the pit window between the first two on track net. 29 seconds of event from passage to the pits, 28 Bourdois. That's where the big buffer comes in. Dubé looks to come into a big chance for a dive with 3 minutes to go. He's very much close to the back bumper for sixth. They both blocked their way to the inside wall. Dubé wobbles. A squeeze. A late break. Dubé, can he make it stick? No. Moisant holds on.
That was a great try, but he had the long way to go around. Even though he had the camber working on his side in his favor, it was still the long way around and just couldn't quite pull it off.
He still rides the back bumper. Nearly to the edge of the rumble strips. 3 cars yet to pit on the racetrack. This likely for a battle for the top 5. And bring that to just a couple. Boulanger has gotten to 2 minutes to go for the stop. Possibly coming up to the checker flag in the next few moments. Coming up to the white possibly the next time around.
All down to this. 8 races in. It's all down to the last 2 minutes here.
Here's a look at the 99. But then he'll drive on by as well as Bourdois. The call doesn't work out for the 22 to jump ahead of them. In fact, he loses even more ground. All the ground he had gained this entire race is gone.
Wow.
As a result, Boulanger 4 seconds back. Battle for sixth again. Will this come to blows again? The blocking came into play. Here we go again.
Wow. And Moisant was way off the racetrack, but it didn't work for Dubé. He's going to try the outside again.
He's tried this a few times throughout the season. Again, no. The Tarzan swing nearly sends him off. Coming up towards the final time around. But as they come up to the final minute, as one champion for the pro side had already been crowned entering the night, another looks to end off the night unofficially with his own crown. Levaik, 50 seconds away from what could be an improbable final race of the season to potentially come away with the title.
Add to his win column number 3, but Don't give it to him yet. It's not over, but it's looking that
And
way.
especially look at what happened just now. Malone-Son has passed Barrett. It's a tie, possibly. 26 seconds to go. Keep your heads on a swivel. This could be wild. Racina's had to come in a pit. Everyone is now taking their stop with the white flag triggered. This time by the 223. Dubé, another lunge, too far.
Too far back.
We'll see if this has the chance to move up for fifth with the pit stop from the 223 Racine. Racine just came out of the pit lane. It's a no in that regard, Ghost Rider.
And the time has expired, so we're down to the end here.
Final times around for the season. Dubé
Nowhere to go
has
to the outside.
tries to go for the lane break again. This time he pinches him. This time they drag. This time they rub. Again, Moisson holds on.
Yeah, the Moisson with that preferred line, Dubé just not able to get that grip around the outside enough.
Still riding the back bumper. All this as well. The top drivers are reaching their final corners on their own as well. What a season it's been, to say the very least, for many of these spots and many of the final point standings positions. It comes down to these final moments. But for one driver in Bourdois, it comes down to just one more set of corners to close out his season. The 432 of Eric Bourdois comes out of the final corner through Ari Leindijk. Checker flag waves. He wins at Zandvoort to close out Season 5. Boven finishes the season with a second, Boulanger in third. The battle's still up for grabs for sixth. One of the closest battles on track to close out the lap.
Tight racing from the start, tight racing to the finish. What could you ask for? And a first-time winner to cap off his season.
An incredible night to close it out. Dubé hoping for some theatrics. For sixth, not gonna get there. Good exit once more for Moisson. Moisson holds on for a top six run. Dubé in seventh. Bourdois recovers from his bumping earlier in eighth. But now it becomes the question of how the championship is for Pro-Am. Levaik, he drove the best race he could possibly have tonight.
Did all that he
And
could.
now, it's the question, how does things fare out points-wise? He'll get the victory at Zandvoort, but Malone-Son has already clinched the 7th in class. How will this break down is on everybody's minds after a wild end for the Pro-Am title.
I got to tell you, they come right down to the wire. We thought we might see them duke it out on the racetrack, but it comes down to a points position on the grid, and I can't wait to see how this shakes up. Got to do some quick math here. Hang on a sec.
It's going to be a lot of calculations waiting for the official confirmation. That's how tight this battle for the title for Pro-Am has been, and what has turned into a whale of a time, to say the very least, tonight from Circuit Zandvoort.
What more could you ask for?
Bourdois comes away with the victory. Then it's Boven, Boulanger, Shenteg, Racine, the top 5 tonight. Moisson, Dubé, Bourdois, and Susi, along with Bilodeau, the top 10. Give credit to the 7 card tonight. We didn't mention him too much. He quietly, very quietly, qualified well, picked up 7 spots, the biggest mover to close out the top 10, Glenn.
That was a great run. You're right. You know, a little silent run, and good for him. Great way to end your season.
And I've just gotten the word. The champion, hearing from control currently, is Malone-Son. Malone-Son has got it. He is the Pro-Am champion according to race control currently. And it comes down to a tight finish in the margins of the points. Down to the within a point or so. Can't ask for a closer title for the number 45.
And he can only, for Levaik, all he can, probably think of is Barcelona 12th place finish, and if only, because that was the factor, and Malone-Son was able to capitalize on that and hang on to it. Congratulations to him.
A lot of calculations to consider, to say the very least. For those keeping track, 140 for Melanson in the, or rather, for Levinck should say, with the 99 plus 25. That puts him at 124 in the points. You do that math, 9 points scored for a 7th place run with that pass in the end. That brings up the tiebreaker, where it's the number of race positions involved which determine the two having the better results. Meaning, if driver 1, for example, finishes with more wins, they win the title. That tiebreaker situation gives it to Melanson. Incredible finish.
Yeah, that it's when it comes down to tiebreaker, I tell you, I mean that's a phenomenal season. I mean, nobody ran away with anything, and it just I think they all can be proud of the season that they had when it comes down to that kind of a finish.
An incredible night, an incredible conclusion to how things have broken out for the campaign. Glenn, your final thoughts on what has been an exciting season. Another championship for Raven, but it's Melanson in a razor-thin margin for the title, who picks it up with a pass with a few laps to go after a 30-second stop and go.
It always amazes you when you start a season off and then it comes down to a tiebreaker in the end. That tells you again the parity, the competitiveness, and the fantastic season that these drivers had and this series had. It's just been absolutely amazing.
And keep in mind, the future events are a major talking point, because we mentioned it at the top. This is going to be an intriguing time in the fall this year. Bit shorter season, 6 races per campaign, but it's more busier nights. The series moves to Tuesdays, where it'll be the TCR Challenge one time of the week. Then the next week, it swaps over to the EGT3 Challenge, where the AM, the National, the Silver, the Pro-Am, and the Pro drivers all compete on that same night with the split calendar championship format. 2 new sprint championships will also be coming into play. The details will be announced in the future. And all of that's while there is in the works an endurance series for charity.
We had so much action to talk about in the race. We didn't really talk much about this, but this is an exciting schedule and an absolutely condensed schedule that I think is just phenomenal.
Especially when it comes to the possibilities all the way from September to December. But we'd like to thank everyone for being a part of tonight's action, as well as the organizers at EGT Canada for their support and their competitiveness throughout the campaign. We'd like to thank Centre Porsche Quebec, Distillery de Croix, Club Autosport Delta Quebec for their support of EGT Canada as well. But with that, it's time to say goodbye. For my co-announcer, Glenn Butt, for our producer, and Steve Proudly, my name's Justin Prince, saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your night. Congratulations to your final race winner of the campaign, Eric Bourdois, your winner from Zandvoort.